What's up guys, Chris here from Mainely Mesh. Wanted to finally put out my theory on LSM pockets, and by LSM I'm going to really focus more on just long stick defenders in general, so talking more about close defense guys, because there's probably a few tweaks you can make if you were trying to be a really offensive minded LSM, but going to focus mostly on the D guys, the guys using wider heads, using the Mark 1 for defense and stuff. So today I have a STX X10 and a Maverick tank here to show off. Basically, this kind of came full circle a few different times. So probably a year and a half or 2 years ago, I think I made a video, I think like 2 or 2.5 years ago, I made a video about cheating a defensive channel, and I think I actually made a second video to follow up on it, where I talked about kind of using anchor knots to string to the inside, but that was focused more on the channel for a defensive stick, and I actually think that video was a little more prescient than I first thought. Good SAT word, look it up. But for a different reason. So basically, I started stringing, I started seeing people stringing nice defensive sticks with a lot of SIs, even stacked SIs and double stacked SIs. And so I kind of got roped into that a little more, and then started having some more failure than used to, with kids not really liking the way it worked out. Which is part, me just not testing things too fully, but I thought there was a little bit more at play, and so I kind of went back and looked at a few different things, because really people always talk about that you need a high pocket in a defensive head, and the reason they want that, more so than feel or throwing is to have, better access to ground balls, to be able to scoop up ground balls a little bit better than a low pocket. But just because you have a high pocket doesn't necessarily mean that your stick is good for ground balls. Basically, what people say, what people mean when they say that is you want to have the mesh pretty loose up top, but you don't necessarily need a high pocket to accomplish that. And actually, a lot of our higher pockets for short sticks are pretty tight up top and wouldn't be so great for ground balls in a defensive setting, just because of the angle of the stick and everything. It works a little better with a short stick, but not quite as well with a long pole. And that has to do, when I'm using knotted SIs a lot of the time to pull the mesh tight to achieve kind of a tighter channel. But for a pole, that's really not necessary. And so it really is best to string pretty much exclusively with anchor knots in the top half of the head here, because it keeps everything to the inside of the head, as you can see here. And what that allows the mesh to do is really stay pretty loose up top. So actually this hole, even right where these nylons are, would be looser if the nylons were removed. But everything's pretty loose up top. You're not really pulling things too tight. And so that allows you, this is really like a mid-low pocket, but it's still going to be really smooth on ground balls. I was testing it out earlier on the field. The same goes for this Maverick tank. Same thing, stringing to the inside with these anchor knots, and it's going to keep it pretty loose. And you can actually see here, because this is a type B shooter setup, that it really is loose all the way right up underneath the scoop. And that's really the goal that a high pocket is trying to accomplish when thinking about ground balls. And then as far as channel goes, pretty much what I've been doing, I used to use 11 sidewall diamonds, but I found that started bagging out a little. So this is, pretty universal and really straightforward. I've just been using 5 consecutive anchor knots pulled down to about the middle of the head. So the 5th anchor knot being pulled down is right in the middle of the head, and then just 5 ones. You see there's a 2 in here, but that's just because of the sidewall hole placement. With the same tank, it's 5 anchor knots, maybe 3/5 at the max down the head, but mostly halfway down the head, and then 5 ones consecutively, with the throat string going on the next 9 diamond row. So you can kind of tweak these things however you want, tweak the release with the shooting strings, but the reason to me that you want to kind of eliminate the catch point in the long poles is that it's a different lever system. So with the longer pole, the ball's going to stay in your stick a little bit longer anyways, and if you have that catch point with the stacked SI with 17.5 millimeter mesh, the time the ball stays in there is designed specifically for short sticks. It's really not necessarily dialed in for these long poles, and so it can be a little bit less consistent. You can have something that catches on a pass, because even though a pass is a shorter motion for a deep pull, that's about the same time that it takes for the ball to get in and out of a short stick. So it kind of counterbalances the theory that it has for the short stick, and doesn't really work in the same way for a long pole. And to me, once again, as a as a biased attackman midfielder, your job as a long pole isn't necessarily to score, in my opinion. And the biggest thing that I want my long poles to do is clear the ball successfully. So you got to be able to make those long passes, whether it's from GLE over the midline or sideline to sideline. You got to make those on a rope every single time, and you're going to want something as smooth and consistent as possible to accomplish that, and don't want to have to worry about the potential inconsistencies of a stacked SI and a catch point in your stick. Because if you start making turnovers off of silly plays just because of the way your stick is strung as an LSM, and your clearing percentage goes down to 60, 50, 40%, sometimes in high school, sometimes 30%, that hurts your team more than anything else, and does not, really cancels out any positive of effect that you might get from scoring 1 goal every 3 games with a stick that whips a little bit more and shoots 5 miles per hour more. So you just kind of got to look at the point of diminishing returns, and really you're going to want as consistent of a defensive stick as possible, and that's really what this theory is designed to do. So that's the style of pocket you're going to be getting anytime you request an LSM or defense specific pattern in our head. So I believe we have the Command U and the Mark 1 are set up to handle that right now. Let me know if there's any other heads that we offer that you'd like to see an LSM style pocket in, or a defensive style pocket in. I think that's pretty much good for now. But also, as always, please let me know what you guys think about this theory. That's why I call them theories and not laws, is because no theory is fully complete, because there's always more testing to be done. So thanks so much. Make sure you guys, as always, like, comment, subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at Mainely Mesh, because we're about to hit 20K, and I'm going to do a little giveaway then, and hopefully get to 25K pretty soon, because I've got a big time giveaway set up for that you guys are going to really enjoy. Yeah. All's well that's end that blah, blah, blah. Great way to finish the video, Chris. Thanks so much. Catch you guys next time.